mother, Queen Victoria.
The President of the European Commission has set out a new strategy for dealing with the influx of 160,000 migrants, although Britain will not be included in the process.
It's a very special day for the Queen, so we have sent Carol for a little bit of weather and celebration as well. So Buckingham Palace, good morning.
Good morning. Yes, we've got special access here this morning, and doesn't it look resplendent? It was built in 1703, transferred to what we now recognise it as in the 1820s. And interestingly, Queen Victoria was the first reigning monarch to actually live here. Now, as we've been mentioning already all morning, that today is a very special day because today our Queen will actually be the longest reigning British 11 and 14. Now, through the evening and overnight, we hang on to the clearer skies across southern areas. There'll be some patchy mist forming as well, but there'll still be quite a lot of cloud around. So it's not going to be a particularly cold night, most of us staying in double figures, certainly so in the towns and cities. And we start tomorrow on that note, where we've got the clear skies by night. Well, we'll have some sunshine to start the day. And for much of England, for Wales and for Northern Ireland, we'll see the sunshine early on, much brighter along the east coast. But it will brighten up too across Scotland, where there will be a wee bit more cloud around to start with. Temperatures, well, getting a little bit warmer because we have got more sunshine around. Again, temperatures into the high teens or indeed the low 20s. Friday's not looking too bad, but it looks like things will break down as we head on into the weekend. Billy and Lou.
Oh, thank you very much indeed, Carol. And it does look, as you say, resplendent,
Yes.
doesn't it?
Talking about something now with which you'll be familiar. Stay tuned, Carol. You'll find this interesting.
A decade before she took the throne, Queen Elizabeth joined the Women's Institute.
And now honorary president of the Sandringham branch, she still meets the members once a year.
So what is it like to take tea and cake with the Queen? Sarah Campbell went along to find out.
This is a woman who spent almost her entire life in the public eye. Hers is one of the world's most recognisable faces, but relatively few people beyond close friends and family will ever get to know her.
We're in Jerusalem, and just to go through the meeting, and all the time at the back of your brain you heard her saying, "This is the Queen, this is the Queen."
Once a year, almost every year since the early 40s, the Queen has taken tea with the ladies of the Sandringham WI.
She pours the tea and makes sure that it's as you like it, and she will offer. It's just a sort of ladies having tea together.
And I hear that she's quite au fait with modern technology.
Oh, very, yes. She just suddenly put her hands up and said, "I've been Skyping." And I looked at her and she was over the moon.
So the most important question, what is the Queen's favourite cake?
We don't know for definite, but we're led to believe that the Queen does enjoy a nice slice of gingerbread.
Nearly every one of Bermuda's 38,000 inhabitants has an opportunity of welcoming Her Majesty and the Duke.
She is the most
You can email us pictures of photos of the day you saw the Queen. What did it mean to you? Send them to bbcbreakfast@bbc.co.uk.
Or you can tweet about today's stories using the hashtag BBC Breakfast and, of course, follow us for the latest from the programme.
We'll have more on all of that a little bit later. Right now, let's get the news, the travel and the weather wherever you happen to be.
Good morning from BBC London News. I'm Alice Bandukravi. Victims of IRA attacks in the capital will give evidence to an inquiry today. It'll question the role the government played in securing compensation for those killed and injured. Semtex, supplied by Libya, was used in many of the IRA's bombs. American victims received payouts when Colonel Gaddafi was in power, but Britons didn't receive anything.
They're entitled for compensating the American victims. They have horrific injuries like Mark MacDonald. I think Mark MacDonald received help and he's very badly injured. But surely that helps to be extended to the United Kingdom. And it's no good saying to the victims, oh, you've got to pursue this yourself. This is a government matter.
The Home Secretary must come clean about plans to cut the Met Police budget. That's according to the Labour group on the London Assembly. They say the potential cuts come despite violent crime in the capital rising to 24% over the past year. But the Minister for Policing says no decisions have been taken on police funding beyond 2015 to 2016. Plans for regenerating Greenwich Peninsula were given the go-ahead last night. The proposals include building 13,000 new homes, redesigning the North Greenwich tube and bus stations, and opening 2 new schools. It also outlined plans to create a film studio and introduce a new 5-kilometre running track around the whole site. OK, well, let's have a look at the travel situation so far this morning. And there is a good service across all tube lines so far. But on the roads, the A13 is building westbound from Dagenham into Barking. In Woodford, the A406 North Circular remains down to 1 lane between the A12 Redbridge roundabout and junction 4 M11 at Charlie Brown's roundabout. And northbound traffic on the Blackwall Tunnel's southern approach is queuing from Blackwall Lane. Time for a check on the weather now with Kate Kinsella.
Good morning. Today it is an improving picture. We may have a little bit of cloud around at first this morning, maybe even a spot or two of light rain, but it will improve. That cloud gradually breaking up to some sunny spells. Now, throughout the course of the day, we're going to see a freshening southeasterly breeze. That's going to help to break this cloud up just a little bit more, so we should see more sunshine as we head into the afternoon. A bit breezier than it has been recently, but it's going to feel maybe a little bit warmer. Temperatures getting up to approximately 20 Celsius in central London. Now, overnight tonight, the sky is clear, but it's not necessarily that cool. Most places, especially towns and cities, staying in double figures. Perhaps out in the more rural locations, we could drop down a degree or 2 further, but the minimum temperature at around 12-13 Celsius. For tomorrow, more sunshine. We've still got that easterly flow, so the air a lot drier. It's going to feel warm. Temperatures up to 21 Celsius, plenty of sunshine, and a similar day for Friday. 21 Celsius, some sunshine, but gradually things start to change overnight Friday into Saturday, and that's when things turn a little more unsettled.
Hello, welcome back. This is Breakfast with Bill Turnbull and Louise Minchin.
Time's just coming up to 6:30. We'll bring you all the latest news and sport in a moment.
Also on Breakfast this morning, as European leaders outline plans to relocate more than 100,000 migrants, we'll talk to a United Nations advisor who warns that this is a defining moment.
London 2012 were Britain's Golden Games, of course. Can Team GB go one better in Rio? We'll reveal the names of the first athletes to secure their spots in next year's Olympic lineup and get reaction from 2 of them.
I want to live like common people. I want to do whatever common people do.
And Pulp frontman Jarvis Cocker will be here to tell us how he's going to be taking over the Royal Albert Hall and why the proms are one of the best ways for common people like him to learn about music.
First, let's get a summary of the morning's main news. And the Queen will become the longest reigning monarch in British history today, passing the record set by her great-great-grandmother, Queen Victoria.
The Queen became monarch on February the 6th, 1952, when her father, George VI, died. Her coronation the following year was watched by millions around the world.
Well, David Cameron has already paid tribute, saying that she has a remarkable record and is a symbol of Britain's enduring spirit. Today, business in the House of Commons will be postponed for half an hour so MPs can pay their own tributes.
And to mark the occasion, an official picture has been released showing the Queen at work at her desk. It was taken by the British photographer Mary McCartney.
Her Majesty's insisted, though, it's business as usual today. Together with the Duke of Edinburgh, she'll be opening the new Scottish Borders Railway.
We'll have more on that later. In other news this morning, the President of the European Commission is expected to set out a new plan for dealing with Europe's influx of migrants.
I beg your pardon. Under the proposals, 160,000 asylum seekers will be relocated among 22 EU member countries. Britain's not included in the process.
At least 15,000 children have been separated from one of their parents because of restrictions on British people bringing foreign spouses into the country. People on low incomes cannot sponsor visas for a husband, wife or partner from outside Europe. A report by the Children's Commissioner for England says many children are suffering distress and anxiety as a result. The Home Office says the rules are lawful and compatible with human rights.
More than 150 plane passengers had a dramatic escape from a British Airways jet after an engine caught fire on the runway at Las Vegas Airport. All the passengers on the flight bound for London escaped down the emergency slides. At least a dozen people were injured, though. An investigation is underway into the cause of the fire.
Hillary Clinton has apologised for her use of a private email server when she was US Secretary of State. The presidential hopeful used the account for official correspondence for over 4 years. She's been accused of putting America's security at risk and of trying to avoid accountability.
Parents of children born in the summer months could be given more rights to allow their child to start school a year late under new plans being proposed by the government. The Schools Minister Nick Gibbs written an open letter to parents, local authorities and head teachers in England, saying he recognises some parents feel forced to send their children to school before they're ready.
Fresh concerns have been raised about the armed forces using the anti-malarial drug commonly known as Lariam. MPs on the Defence Select Committee say it's become clear that the drug does not command universal support. Some service personnel have complained of side effects, including hallucinations, depression and paranoia.
The UK is among the top 10 best places in the world for elderly people to live, according to an index compiled by the charity HelpAge International.
Switzerland is at #1, followed by Norway, Sweden and Germany. The index measures the lives of older people in 4 key areas, including income and health. The report was part of a joint study with the University of Southampton.
Those are the main news stories. Weather from Carol at Buckingham Palace in a few minutes.
Absolutely. Should we talk about a celebration of a completely different kind?
I was just going to say, it's a day of milestones,
isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, that's exactly what it is.
Wayne Rooney obviously very delighted with his from last night because a great performance from him and from England, even though the game itself didn't matter a huge amount. England's 100% record in Euro 26 qualifying continued with a 2-0 win over Switzerland at Wembley last night. But the night, in fact, belonged to Rooney, England's new all-time goal scorer, after he scored his 50th goal for his country. It took more than an hour for England to make the breakthrough, and it came courtesy of substitute Harry Kane. Rooney spurned 3 chances before a foul on Raheem Sterling saw him handed an opportunity that was just too good to miss. And there he goes, past the record that's been held for so long by Sir Bobby Charlton.
Such a huge honour to be the leading goal scorer for England. A highly pressured moment for me before the penalty. I was quite nervous, but thankfully it went in, and I'm such a proud man tonight.
England's cricketers pulled off a spectacular victory over Australia at Old Trafford in a game they had to win to keep the one-day series alive. England, who were 2-0 down in the 5-match series, batted first and made a 300 thanks to a century from James Taylor. Australia's reply was going well until a just brilliant catch from Stephen Finn dismissed their captain Stephen Smith. Wickets began to fall as England bowled them out for 207. The pick of them was this catch, though, from Jason Roy to get rid of Ashton Agar, grasping hold of the ball at the second attempt. Look at that. Look at that. England winning by 93 runs. Wales are facing up to the fact they'll be missing 2 of their key players for the upcoming Rugby Union World Cup, which starts in just over a week's time. It's been confirmed scrum half Rhys Webb will miss the whole of the tournament after picking up a foot injury in Saturday's win over Italy in a warm-up match. Fullback and kicker Lee Halfpenny has also been ruled out after being injured in the same game.
When it's a World Cup, it only happens once every 4 years. You know, Rhys hasn't been to a World Cup, Rhys Webb, and you'll have to wait another 4 years for that opportunity. So it's the timing of it, which is, I think, is the most difficult thing. Players going through nasty injuries. I don't think a player can go through his career, a 10-year career now, without having to go under the knife. That's just the way rugby is nowadays. But just the timing of it before a World Cup, that's what makes it very cruel.
In tennis, world #1 Serena Williams beat her sister Venus in the quarterfinals of the US Open as she aims to win all 4 Grand Slam events in the same calendar year. Serena won in 3 sets overnight and is into the last 4, where she will meet the unseeded Italian Roberta Vinci. She's already won the Australian and French Opens plus Wimbledon this year. Only 3 other players have achieved the calendar Grand Slam in the sport's history. Team Sky have chalked up their 200th race win, appropriately enough for the British team, at the Tour of Britain. It was an Italian rider, though, who delivered the victory at the end of the 3rd stage in Kelso in Scotland. Elia Viviani winning for a 2nd time after taking the opening stage on Sunday. Spain's Juan José Lobato finished 2nd and inherited the leader's yellow jersey because Peter Vakos crashed with 3 miles to go. I'm going to pause now and just show you, if I can, front page of a couple of this morning's papers. That's the front page of the Mirror. I don't know if we can get that. Main story there is Paula Radcliffe on the front page of the Mirror. She's also on the front page of the Independent this morning. Radcliffe has had to come out and issue a statement defending herself and categorically denying any form of cheating after being linked, in her own words, to allegations about doping in athletics. She said comments made at a parliamentary select committee inquiry effectively implicated her and threatened to undermine her reputation. The chair of the committee, Jessie Norman, has said the allegations were not linked to specific athletes.
When you hear that the London Marathon, potentially the winners or medalists of the London Marathon, potentially British athletes, are under suspicion for very high levels of blood doping, when you think of the effect that has on young people who hold that event and the community nature of that event, what are your emotions about that?
Well, our sports news correspondent Richard Conway is with me now. So does that explain why Paula Radcliffe felt she had to make this really long statement yesterday?
Yes, 1,700 words in total from Paula Radcliffe. You know, one of Britain's greatest athletes, the world record holder in marathon, having to come out and say that she feels effectively implicated because of the tone and the nature of those questions in that select committee hearing yesterday. She categorically denies that she's ever cheated, and she says that she feels angry about what she says is the cloak of parliamentary privilege that has been used to, within the parliamentary confines, to, she feels, drag her into these allegations. Last night she gave a little bit more information about this and defended her position again.
Obviously, I feel very angry, very hurt and very sad about that. I also feel very strongly that I haven't done anything wrong, so why should I be made to feel as though I've done something wrong and that I need to defend myself? I feel angry for other athletes that are also threatened in this way. It shouldn't happen. An innocent athlete should never, ever be put in the position that I'm here in today. But having said that, I will do everything that I can do to defend myself because I have never done anything wrong, and that will always be the case.
So what has been the reaction to that, to what she said?
Well, at the moment, I think she's going to come under a lot of pressure to release her blood data. This is a very thorny issue. The World Anti-Doping Agency, WADA, have said that athletes probably shouldn't do that because it's open to misinterpretation. But yet other athletes have done that. Mo Farah, of course, Joe Pavey, the British athlete, she's done that as well, released their data and said, look, we've got nothing to hide here. Paula Radcliffe has in the past, last month, speaking to the BBC, said, actually, that's probably not a good idea because it could be misinterpreted. It could help others cheat. But I think the pressure now will come on her from others to say, you can clear this up, you can help exonerate yourself by releasing this data. Of course, there are differences of opinion on that, but it is a very thorny issue now, given the circumstances and given, of course, the blood data itself does not effectively prove doping. It is used as an indication, which is then followed up by target testing. So a very difficult position for Paula Radcliffe.
Yeah, and it's very difficult, isn't it, also because we can't interpret this sort of information. It's a very difficult thing to kind of interpret in a brief way, isn't it? So that potentially is a next move for her, isn't it, though, to release that sort of information?
I think that's one option for her as well. Amongst all this as well, given the allegations we heard from the Sunday Times and from ARD, the German broadcaster, they say they've made claims about what they say is the extent of cheating within athletics. The IAAF, the world governing body for the sport, is conducting an independent inquiry at the moment. That will report back some of its findings before the end of this year. That may give further information about this whole issue. The sport of athletics and its integrity is really under scrutiny right now, and athletes like Paula Radcliffe are having to defend themselves individually. It's the real fallout from all of these claims that we've heard in recent weeks.
Richard, thank you very much indeed. Richard Conway, our sports news correspondent. Back to you
The
two.
story moves on, doesn't it? Thanks very much, Dave.
Thanks, Al. It is 6:41. You're watching Breakfast from BBC News.
These are the main stories this morning. After more than 63 years, the Queen will today become Britain's longest reigning monarch, passing the record set by her great-great-grandmother, Queen Victoria.
The President of the European Commission is to set out a new strategy for dealing with the influx of 160,000 migrants, although Britain will not be included in that process.
Where better to send Carol on this special royal day than Buckingham Palace? Morning.
Morning. Good morning, all. Good morning. It's a lovely start here at Buckingham Palace. It's chilly, mind you. We've had some drizzle around already, but what a resplendent view. Now, some facts about Buckingham Palace. It has 775 rooms, including 19 staterooms, 52 royal and guest bedrooms, 188 staff bedrooms, but only 78 bathrooms, so there must be a queue first thing in the morning. The other thing that I didn't realise was that the Queen actually gave birth to Prince Charles and also Prince Andrew here in Buckingham Buckingham Palace, and as we've been hearing the news, today Her Majesty becomes the longest reigning British monarch in history, surpassing Queen Victoria's reign. Now, talking of rain, but of a different kind, there is a little bit in the forecast today because there's quite a lot of cloud around. We're looking at variable amounts of cloud and also some sunny spells. Now, there's some fog around this morning as well, around the Great Glen, the Northern Isles and also Northern Ireland. So if we start in Scotland at 9, some clearer skies in the west, but there is a lot of cloud around, and that cloud is producing some drizzly bits and pieces in the east. For Northern England, it's also a fairly cloudy start to the day, as it is as we head further south, in across the Midlands, into East Anglia, heading down into the southeast, and particularly in eastern areas, we're looking at some drizzle. But as we drift further west, there's some breaks in the cloud, but still there is some cloud around, and across Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly, it's fairly breezy. For Wales this morning, you've got both. Where we've got the clearer skies, it's chilly, but equally there is some cloud around. And then as we sweep across the Irish Sea into Northern Ireland, we've got the fog first thing. That will lift. There's still a fair bit of cloud, but it will break and we'll see some sunshine develop. So talking of sunshine, through the day, you can see how the cloud is eroded from the south and the west, and the sun does come out. It's not wall-to-wall blue skies we're looking at, but there certainly will be lengthy sunny periods. However, from the Pennines eastwards in across Northern England, there will be more cloud, as there will be across the borders, Edinburgh, Aberdeen into the Northern Isles, and close to the coast here we'll hang on to some drizzle. Now in that it will be cooler, we're looking at about 11 to 14, but in the sunshine some of us will get up to the low 20s, maybe 23 Celsius. Then through the evening and overnight, well, for much of Scotland, Northern England, Wales, Midlands and also Northern Ireland, there'll be a lot of cloud around. In the south there will be breaks, there'll also be some patchy mist, but it's not going to be a particularly cold night. Most places staying in double figures. The temperatures you see there are towns and cities, a little bit lower in rural areas. Tomorrow we start off with the sunshine from the word go in the south, but it quickly develops across Northern England, Wales and Northern Ireland. It will be slower for the cloud to break up across Scotland, but it will, and we should also see some sunshine here. And tomorrow will be sunnier than today, and as a result, it's also going to be warmer. Again, widely we're looking at the high teens or the low 20s in terms of Celsius, but it won't necessarily last into the weekend. It looks like it is going to break down from the southwest. Billy and Lou.
Carol, thanks very much. See you later.
Now let's get more on the news that a British Airways plane caught fire while trying to take off from Las Vegas.
Yes, the aircraft bound for Gatwick was evacuated very quickly. At least a dozen people were injured. Let's talk to Jacob Steinberg, who's a reporter from the Guardian newspaper, who was actually on the plane when it happened. Morning, Jacob. Glad to hear everybody's now safe.
Hi. Thanks for that.
Yeah. What happened?
Well, I was actually asleep while the plane was taking off, and was woken up very suddenly by the brakes, by what I assume were the brakes being hit very sharply by the pilot, and wasn't too sure at that point what was going on. It was, sort of very violently. The plane was being stopped. It was moving very quickly, and you could feel it sort of juddering along the wheels juddering along the tarmac, and eventually brought it to a halt. And then there was a kind of calm on one side of the plane, on the right side of the plane, where people weren't sure what had happened. On the left, there were some people who started running towards the front, towards some of the doors, because obviously there's the left side where the engine is caught fire. And then the air steward and stewardess were telling people to calm down and to stay seated and reassuring people that it was okay. That maybe lasted for, between 3 minutes, 5 minutes perhaps. And then there was a shout for people to evacuate. On the right side of the plane, by this point, we had spotted that there was smoke, and we could smell the smoke inside the plane. And one of the air stewardesses opened the back door on the right side of the plane, which actually caused quite a lot of smoke to come into the plane from that side. So people who had been directed there had to rush back towards the front of the plane and get the slides down. People I've spoken to, some of the passengers said they had seen the fire, and one person said that the fire had melted a couple of the windows. Right. So you could understand why immediately people on the left were running forward.
Jacob, once the evacuation started, how quick was it?
It was quite a blur. I mean, there was just a confusion over the fact. I'm not sure that the staff exactly knew what had happened, so they weren't sure where it was. And I think the fact that one of the air stewardesses opened that back door and smoke started to come in, and people had to sort of turn around in a plane where there's not a lot of space to move, and it sort of, I think it probably delayed it a little bit, but they were reacting in the best way they possibly could, because it was just such a panicky situation.
Well, you'd imagine it's quite a frightening experience.
Yeah, I mean, we were, from my perspective, I was kind of, I can't remember, just sort of it being a slight blur, and your mind kind of going blank, and you're just kind of looking, just thinking, reach the door, just get to the door, because there was smoke coming behind us, and my friend who was with me said that the look on the air stewardess's face when she opened that door was quite something. The look in his eye was, he was terrified. I personally didn't see it, but there was, once the adrenaline had gone, I think that there was quite a lot of shock from people.
Yeah.
We've all kind of been a bit shaken up, and there was some people had heads in hands, and it was not an experience anyone wanted to go through.
No, absolutely. Well, Jacob, thanks very much for joining us this morning and telling us what happened. Jacob Steinberg there.
12 minutes to 7. It is only early September, isn't it? But some people are getting ready for Christmas already. They kind of need to.
Who could that be?
They do need to.
Steph, you'd imagine. At the Autumn Trade Fair at the NEC in Birmingham. Morning.
Good morning to you. Good morning, everyone. I am in heaven here this morning. I have to tell you, there are some 1,400 different exhibitors here, all with the different products that you'll probably see in the shops over Christmas. This is where the retailers will come and choose what they think will be the big best sellers for Christmas. It's an important time of year for them. Obviously, a lot of people do a lot of their business during that time. We know they've had a tough summer. So I've come here to find out a bit about how important it is. I've got Lisa here with us, who can chat to first. Good morning to you, Lisa.
Good morning, Steph.
So, Lisa, Christmas for you is a real family business, isn't it? Tell us about it.
It is. Ever since my father set up the first pop-up shops about 25 years ago in empty buildings in shopping centres around the UK, we've recognised that Christmas is our biggest season. Yeah. So, Scape Interiors is a family business based in Leigh-on-Sea and Bournemouth with a loyal customer base. And for our customers, we come here to find all the latest trends, the best products and everything, and completely transform the shop into a winter wonderland.
How on earth do you decide between everything? Because I've only been wandering around for an hour now, and I am literally already, my eyes are just full of things.
Oh, it is a complete and utter treasure trove, but I think every year we're getting kind of better at it. We run around the whole place, we check things out, and then we go back to all the ones that we like the look of and look for the best deals and the best products and everything. But it is, I mean, you could spend a whole week here, and even this morning you see new things all the time, but I think we've picked up some fantastic things this year. Excellent. So we're really happy.
Well, good luck with the Winter Wonderland. Thank you very much. See you later, Lisa. Yeah, so obviously very important for buyers like Lisa who are coming to pick up the products to put in the shops, but also there are the sellers as well, and Stephen's one of the sellers. Good morning to you. Good morning, Steph. Tell us about your business then, because you're here to basically sell your stuff, aren't you?
Yeah, this is the most important time of year for all of us in the giftware trade, and irrespective of the growth of online retail, these shows still represent the most important opportunity for people to pick up product, to see things firsthand and to know what's going to be big this Christmas.
So what sells well at something like this?
Well, for us, we launched 1,500 new products here at this show, and today being the last day, we still expect a huge number of people through the door to come and literally pick things up, and even if they go home and place the orders online later, they're looking for everything from candles, which are huge, obviously, in the autumn period, through to Star Wars product, which we all know is going to be massive this Christmas.
Yeah, excellent, good tip. Thank you very much, Stephen. And before I go, I just want to have a quick word with Paul as well, who's a retail analyst, because yesterday, Paul, I was talking about the problems retailers have had over the summer. What's Christmas looking like, do you think?
Well, obviously the figures were a little bit damp for August, and was quite a damp August too. But this represents a great opportunity now for retailers to get into the halls. There's 5 massive halls here packed with product. And the golden quarter, the final quarter, is a real chance to make the year end. So retailers will be out today looking for products, looking for bargains, looking for topping up orders they've already placed, and creating new orders too. So this is a chance to really get in and get it right for the end of the year and that golden quarter. So it's looking pretty positive.
Excellent. And in terms of the business that's done here, it's something like £1.2 billion worth of trade. Is that significant in the grand scheme of retail?
It's certainly huge and towards the quarter, the final golden quarter. So it is big for the retailers. There's a little bit of spring preview too, so it's about getting ahead for next year, but it's certainly a big part of the calendar. Admittedly, it's not quite as big as the spring fair, which is about twice the size, but there's still 5 massive halls here, absolutely packed with product for retailers to really get stuck into and start getting back into their shops. And it's on short lead times too, so they can get it in quickly.
Excellent. Thank you very much for your time. Now, I have been looking for presents for both of you, Louise and Bill, and I found loads for Louise, lots of homeware, but there's one other thing, Bill, I saw it, and hey, look at this. You are the bee's knees. Look at all the bee products here. We've got bee jars, we've got bee coasters,
lovely stuff.
Bee happy boxes, bee key rings.
Super.
And let's buy the bee's knees and we can put it in the makeup room and make him feel happy every morning.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Bees don't have knees, actually.
But you are the bee's knees.
Yeah, boy, you're very kind. 8 minutes to 7. The Queen was just 25 when she took the throne in 1952, a succession that took place outside Britain.
Yes, Princess Elizabeth became Queen while on an official visit to Kenya. She was staying at the Treetops Hotel when her father, King George VI, died.
Our correspondent Alistair Leithhead's been back there, and his report's followed by stories from other Commonwealth countries.
Well, this is the spot where the young Princess Elizabeth became Queen back in 1952. At the time, there was a huge tree standing here with rooms at the top of it in a tree house. It was a private place for her to come and take in the wildlife at this watering hole. You can see there's a new hotel that's now been built on the other side there. They famously said that this is the place that she walked up the steps into the tree as a princess and walked down as Queen. But she didn't know while she was here that her father had died. It was only when the royal party got back to what was then a royal residence further down the road that the message came through. Her husband broke the news to her and they headed back to Britain.
The Queen's visit in 1997 was part of Pakistan's celebrations of the 50th anniversary of independence, and one of the places she visited was the Grand Faisal Mosque here in Islamabad, just behind me. In keeping with Islamic traditions, she wore a headscarf and took her shoes off, and many remember pictures of her walking around the mosque with a pair of blue socks, and I'm told these are the ones you get on a British Airways flight. Those who accompanied her on the visit also remember the Queen as someone who struck up conversation with people, made them feel at ease, and was really interested in their stories. One official told me that she's a monarch with a human touch.
Here in Jamaica, back in 2011, the Prime Minister, Portia Simpson-Miller, shortly after she was re-elected, said that she wanted to make sure that the Queen was replaced as the head of state. It's something which opened a debate that's still going.
I think she's a really outstanding leader. You know, she's really disciplined and regal. I don't know who could ever take her place. She's awesome.
I don't have any problem with how the Queen runs her monarchy. I'm talking about our establishment of being truly independent.
Well, nearly 5 years have passed and very little has changed. Elizabeth II is still the Queen of Jamaica, but with the ruling party and the opposition both in agreement that they want things to change, many people here are aware that the monarchy, especially in Jamaica, may well be a thing of the past.
The Sydney Opera House wasn't built the first time the Queen came to Australia. She's been here more than a dozen times, visiting every state and territory. As she reaches her milestone, she remains popular with many Australians.
Well, I actually think she's fantastic, and she's a great public servant, and she's been to Australia, and the Australians took her on with open arms. We love her here.
There are those who want to replace the Queen with a homegrown head of state. A referendum on a republic was rejected in 1999, and constitutional reform here in sunny Australia seems years away. Phil Mercer, BBC News, at Bondi Beach.
Reflections on the Queen's reign from around the Commonwealth.
Coming up in the next half an hour here on Breakfast, as the European Commission outlines plans to relocate more than 100,000 migrants, we'll talk to a UN advisor who warns that this is a defining moment.
Right now, let's get news, travel and weather where you are.
Good morning from BBC London News. I'm Alice Bandukravi. A group of victims and relatives of those who died in an IRA bomb in Docklands are seeking compensation from Colonel Gaddafi's frozen assets. Semtex, supplied by Libya, was used in many of the IRA's bombs. American victims received payouts when Colonel Gaddafi was in power, but Britons didn't receive anything.
They're entitled for compensating the American victims. They have horrific injuries like Mark MacDonald. I think Mark MacDonald received help and he's very badly injured. But surely that helps to be extended to the United Kingdom. And it's no good saying to the victims, oh, you've got to pursue this yourself. This is a government matter.
The Home Secretary must come clean about plans to cut the Met Police budget. That's according to the Labour group on the London Assembly. They say the potential cuts come despite violent crime in the capital rising to 24% over the past year. But the Minister for Policing says no decisions have been taken on police funding beyond this year. Plans for regenerating Greenwich Peninsula were given the go-ahead last night. The proposals include building 13,000 new homes, redesigning the North Greenwich tube and bus stations and opening 2 new schools. There are also plans to create a film studio and to introduce a new 5-kilometre running track around the whole site. Time for a look at the travel situation now. And on the tube, there is a good service across all lines so far. On trains, southern and southeastern trains via Hastings are disrupted because of a tree on the line earlier on. The M11 is looking slow southbound from junction 5 for Loughton into the North Circular at junction 4. And northbound traffic on the Blackwall Tunnel southern approach is queuing from the Woolwich Road flyover, and the Woolwich Ferry is only running a one-boat service. That's because of mechanical problems. OK, time for a check on the weather now with Kate Kinsella.
Good morning. Today it is an improving picture. We may have a little bit of cloud around at first this morning, maybe even a spot or two of light rain, but it will improve. That cloud gradually breaking up to some sunny spells. Now, throughout the course of the day, we're going to see a freshening southeasterly breeze. That's going to help to break this cloud up just a little bit more, so we should see more sunshine as we head into the afternoon. A bit breezier than it has been recently, but it's going to feel maybe a little bit warmer. Temperatures getting up to approximately 20 Celsius in central London. Now, overnight tonight, the sky is clear, but it's not necessarily that cool. Most places, especially towns and cities, staying in double figures. Perhaps out in the more rural locations, we could drop down a degree or 2 further, but the minimum temperature at around 12-13 Celsius. For tomorrow, more sunshine. We've still got that easterly flow, so the air a lot drier. It's going to feel warm. Temperatures up to 21 Celsius, plenty of sunshine. And a similar day for Friday, 21 Celsius, some sunshine, but gradually things start to change overnight Friday into Saturday, and that's when things turn a little more unsettled.
There's more news, travel and weather from us in half an hour. Join us then. Bye-bye.
Someone please! Help me!
Where is the doctor?
I can't find him. No one can. It's a confession dial. The last will and testament of the doctor. What have you done?
Maximum extermination. Doctor Who starts 19th of September on BBC One.
Hello, good morning. This is Breakfast with Bill Turnbull and Louise Minchin.
The Queen becomes Britain's longest reigning monarch today.
After more than 63 years, she'll have been on the throne for longer than Queen Victoria.
To celebrate the milestone, this new official picture's released, showing Her Majesty still hard at work.
I'm in Edinburgh, where it's business as usual for the Queen, who will officially open the new Borders Railway.
It's Wednesday, the 9th of September.
Also this morning, European countries could be forced to take tens of thousands of refugees under a new EU plan to deal with the migrant crisis.
A lucky escape. A British Airways plane bound for Gatwick is evacuated as its engine catches fire on takeoff from Las Vegas.
Good morning. It may only be September, but for the shopping world, Christmas is well underway. I'm at the Autumn Trade Fair, where retailers are buying up their stock ready for the festive season. Morning, Santa.
Morning, Steph. Morning, everyone. In sport, it's Rooney, the record breaker. Wayne Rooney's penalty against Switzerland means he's now England's all-time top scorer with 50 goals.
And on this special royal day, we've sent Carol somewhere especially royal for the weather. Morning.
Good morning from Buckingham Palace, looking resplendent this morning on this historic day. The weather hasn't realised it yet, but it will. We've had some showers and some drizzle here in London this morning. That will clear, and for many parts of the UK, we will see some sunny intervals develop. However, across parts of northern England, eastern, southern and central Scotland, there will be more cloud with some spots of drizzle. But I'll have more details on all of that in 15 minutes.
Thanks, Carol.
Our main story this morning, the Queen will become the longest reigning monarch in British history today, passing the record set by her great-great-grandmother, Queen Victoria. She will have reigned for 63 years and 7 months.
Well, the Queen became monarch on February the 6th, 1952, when her father, George VI, died. Her coronation the following year was watched by millions of people around the world.
David Cameron has already paid tribute, saying that she has a remarkable record and is a symbol of Britain's enduring spirit. Today, business in the House of Commons will be postponed for half an hour, so MPs can pay their own tributes.
Well, to mark the occasion, a flotilla will form a procession down the Thames in London between Tower Bridge and the Houses of Parliament. The bridge will lift as a sign of respect, and HMS Belfast will sound a 4-gun salute.
Her Majesty won't be there, though, insisting that it is business as usual today. Together with the Duke of Edinburgh, she'll open the new Scottish Borders Railway.
And our Scotland correspondent Lorna Gordon joins us now from Edinburgh. So a normal working day for the Queen, it would appear. Morning, Lorna.
Yes, that's exactly how it appears. It is usual for the Queen to be in Scotland at this time of year. She's usually holidaying at her private residence, Balmoral, up on Royal Deeside. But today she will journey down to Edinburgh to officially open the new Borders Railway. It's the longest piece of track to be constructed in Britain for 100 years. And she will travel its 30-mile route, taking a steam locomotive, a steam train from here in Edinburgh down to Tweedbank in the Borders. On that journey, she will be joined by people who used to work on the line before it was closed during the Beechings cuts, and some of those who worked to open the railway back up again. She'll also be joined by Scotland's First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, who will accompany the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh in their carriage. I think whilst we're hearing often this phrase, it is business as usual today for the Queen, I think there will be plenty of people who will be out to celebrate this record-breaking day.
Thanks very much, Lorna Gordon in Edinburgh.
And we'll have more on that throughout the programme this morning. Details of a plan to relocate 160,000 refugees across 22 EU countries will be set out this morning.
It'll be laid out by the President of the European Commission, Jean-Claude Juncker. Britain will not be involved in the process, though.
Let's speak now to our Europe correspondent, Chris Morris, who's in Strasbourg. Morning to you. So many things to be found out of where these people might go. What's going to be decided today?
Yeah, good morning. We're going to hear details of where the Commission thinks people should be sent to make the distribution from countries like Italy, Greece and Hungary, where we've seen these huge influxes of people arrive, to make that distribution more fair. Quite a few countries, especially in Eastern Europe, have said they're not happy with the idea of mandatory quotas. But I spoke to one senior EU official last night who says he thinks the tide is beginning to turn, that people understand the scale of the crisis and they will show some solidarity. Don't forget, this figure of 160,000 is only for this year, and there will also be proposals for a permanent mechanism whereby if there are future influxes of people, automatically there could be another distribution of refugees. This is also going to be just one part of a much bigger proposal on asylum, and part of it, importantly, will be to ensure that people whose asylum applications fail can be deported more quickly. A lot of people whose applications fail never leave Europe, and I think plans are going to be put into place to make sure, to some countries in particular, that whole process of deportation can be fast-tracked.
Chris Morris, thank you.
Well, so much for the politics. What's actually happening on the ground? Let's get a picture now from our correspondent, Anna Holligan, who's at a camp in Roske on the Hungarian-Serbian border. Morning, Anna.
Good morning. This is clearly a defining moment in European history, and for the first time today we're going to hear how this continent plans to deal with this crisis, the biggest refugee crisis since the Second World War, in some kind of coordinated manner. And so far, until now, that has been severely lacking. Here in Hungary, you can see here we've just arrived in the camp. These men arrived from Pakistan this morning. Just behind them you can see the railway tracks, and there is a constant flow of people walking down those railway tracks. I don't know if you can see, just in the distance over there is the borderline. That's where the Hungarians have erected the razor wire fence. That's due to be completed imminently. In these tents behind, lots of families. There are some British doctors who got here yesterday. They said they saw the news and they felt as though they had to come down and do something. And we've just heard that the aid agency, UNHCR, have received permission now from the Hungarian government to come and set up their big white aid tents here. So we're expecting to see them within the next few days.
Anna, thanks very much. Anna Holligan on the Hungarian-Serbian border there.
More than 150 passengers had a dramatic escape from a British Airways jet after one of its engines caught fire on the runway at Las Vegas airport.
All the passengers on the flight bound for London escaped down the emergency slides. At least a dozen people were injured, though. Our correspondent James Cook reports.
It is afternoon at Las Vegas airport and a drama is unfolding on the runway. A British Airways plane is ablaze, smoke and flames pouring from the engine on the left wing. It should have been a routine takeoff, but Flight 2276 never made it off the ground, crashing to a halt when the pilot realised the aircraft was in trouble.
The aircraft, a Boeing 777-200, experienced a fire in its left side engine as it was preparing to take off. The pilots quickly aborted the takeoff. The fire had been extinguished and all 159 passengers and 13 crew had been evacuated from the aircraft.
As the order was given to evacuate, passengers say smoke began to pour into the cabin as one exit was opened and immediately declared unsafe. Nonetheless, some passengers managed to film on their phones as they scuttled for safety. The airport says firefighters reached the Boeing 777 within 2 minutes, and within another 3 minutes everyone on board had escaped. An investigation into the blaze is now underway, after what was clearly a lucky escape for all on board. James Cook, BBC News, Los Angeles.
Hillary Clinton has apologised for her use of a private email server when she was US Secretary of State. The presidential hopeful used the account for official correspondence over 4 years. She's been accused of putting America's security at risk and trying to avoid accountability.
Parents of children born in the summer months could be given more rights to allow their child to start school a year late. That's under new plans being proposed by the government.
The Schools Minister Nick Gibbs written an open letter to parents, local authorities and head teachers in England saying he recognises that some parents feel forced to send their children to school before they're ready. Here's our political correspondent, Chris Mason.
It's long been a cause for concern for some parents of children born in July and August. Their children will begin their schooling having just turned 4, but will be sitting alongside others celebrating their 5th birthdays as their first term in the classroom begins. So, what are the rules now? The school's admissions code requires authorities to provide a school place for all children in the September following their 4th birthday. A child doesn't actually reach compulsory school age until the start of the school term following their 5th birthday. But parents of children born in summer who wish to defer their child's schooling by a year but still start in the reception class can only do so at the moment with the permission of the admission authority, such as the local council or the school's governing body. In his open letter to parents, Nick Gibbs said this system was flawed and he wanted the admissions code changed. No child, he said, should be forced to start school before they are ready. Chris Mason, BBC News.
Fresh concerns have been raised about the armed forces using the anti-malarial drug commonly known as Lariam. MPs on the Defence Select Committee say it's become clear that the drug does not command universal support. Some service personnel have complained of side effects, including hallucinations, depression and paranoia.
The UK is the 10th best place in the world for elderly people to live, according to an index compiled by the charity HelpAge International.
Switzerland is at #1, followed by Norway, Sweden and Germany. The index measures the lives of older people in the 4 key areas, including income and health. The report was part of a joint study with the University of Southampton.
Those are all main stories at 11 minutes past 7. Now, images of migrants and refugees risking their lives to reach Europe have dominated news headlines over the past few weeks. But the questions about which countries could give them refuge have largely remained unanswered.
Well, later this morning, the President of the European Commission will set out a new strategy to relocate 160,000 people in 22 countries, although Britain would not be included in that process.
Well, let's talk now to Peter Sutherland, who's an immigration advisor to the United Nations. Mr. Sutherland, thanks very much for joining us this morning. So this latest plan to take 160,000 refugees and migrants across 22 countries in Europe, is that enough, in your view?
No, it is not enough. I suppose in the end of the day, the proposal that will be made by the Commission is a measure of their belief in what is politically feasible for sale to the European Council. The numbers that are coming are enormous, and some countries are taking a huge burden as things stand. Germany has said yesterday that apart from the 800,000 that they may take this year, that over the next 5 years they'll take 500,000 a year. Sweden also and others have taken the burden of this. It is only appropriate that it should be shared right across Europe by those who are inside and even those like the UK who are outside, in my opinion, the common justice area, legal area.
Right.
This is a matter of humanity.
Here's the difficulty. The UN itself has said there are 4 million Syrian refugees who've left the country. More than 7.5 million are internally displaced. Even if the doors were completely open across Europe, surely Europe would not be able to take them all.
I think that we shouldn't look at that type of scenario. We should look at what we have to deal with at the moment and the sort of numbers, 300, 400,000 coming each year. We've got a war in our hands. A country with just less than 20 million people is utterly traumatized by this war. This is a moment of destiny for Europe. It's a moment where we have a brief moment to save our own integrity as a continent. We've a huge proportion of global wealth, and we're well able, with a population of over 540 million, to take many, many refugees. And we could handle this if people shared the responsibility. Yesterday, the Secretary General of the UN, for whom I'm his special representative, made the comment that we need a joint European approach. That is absolutely clear. No country is an island in this context.
You mentioned shared responsibility. What about this responsibility of other countries in the Middle East? Are they taking any of the burden on?
No, they're not, and they absolutely should. This is a global issue. It's not an issue that is defined by anything other than the humanity that is involved. And that means the whole world has a responsibility to take refugees. It's not an exclusively European problem, let alone a Greek or Italian problem where so many have arrived. The whole world should be participating, and particularly the Gulf states and the states in that area who are not taking refugees.
And why are they not?
That is a decision that they've taken. There are political choices here. This is a matter I do not think that can be dealt with solely by making financial contributions. Every country, I think, has to make real efforts to take refugees, and that goes across the Atlantic and into Asia.
Peter Sutherland, thank you very much.
Thank you.
It is just coming to 16 minutes past 7. You're watching Breakfast from BBC News. Our main stories this morning. After more than 63 years, the Queen will today become Britain's longest reigning monarch, passing the record set by her great-great-grandmother, Queen Victoria.
The President of the European Commission has set out a new strategy for dealing with the influx of 160,000 migrants, although Britain will not be included in the process.
It's a special day today, isn't it? Carol has been sent to Buckingham Palace this morning. Very good morning.
Good morning. I can think of a lot worse places to be sent, Lou, than Buckingham Palace as well. Doesn't it look splendid? Even though it's cloudy at the moment, it should brighten up later on. But as we've been saying all morning, today is quite an historic day, because today will mark the day that Her Majesty the Queen becomes the longest reigning British monarch in history, surpassing the reign of Queen Victoria. Now, Queen Victoria's reign amounted to 63 years and 7 months, but when you break that down, it's 23,226 days, 16 hours and 23 minutes. The palace haven't got an exact time when they expect that record to be broken today, and that's largely because the Queen's father, King George, passed away in his sleep, but they do think it will be around 1730. Now, it should brighten up here in London. We've had some drizzle this morning already, and we've also got some fog around this morning, not in London, but across parts of Northern Ireland, the Northern Isles and the Great Glen. All of that will lift, and for most of us the forecast today is one of variable cloud and also sunny spells, and that's certainly the case this morning. So we've got the fog across Scotland. That will be lifting quite readily now, and it's in the west we've got the brightest skies, but there is quite a lot of cloud around, and in the east we've got some drizzle as well. Across northern England, quite a lot of cloud this morning as well, and that extends down towards the Midlands, into East Anglia, Kent, the London area too. Now, close to the east coast, we're prone to some drizzle, and that's likely to be on and off through the day. Drifting across southern counties into the southwest, there are some breaks, some patchy mist across southwest England. Here too, across Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly, it's breezy. And for Wales, you've got a mixture. Where we've got the sunshine to start the day, it's chilly, temperatures rising quite quickly, but there is a lot of cloud around. And we've got the fog in Northern Ireland. That too will lift, and we'll see some sunny spells develop. So through the day, you can see how the cloud is eroded from the south and also the west, and sunny spells will develop. It's not wall-to-wall blue skies, there still will be some cloud around, but it'll be a pleasant enough day. However, from the Pennines into northern England and anywhere from the borders, Edinburgh, Aberdeen, the Northern Isles, we're prone to hanging onto that cloud with the drizzle, especially close to the coast. Under that combination, it will feel cool. Temperatures about 11 to 14, but in the sunshine, pleasant. We're looking at the high teens, low 20s. Through the evening and overnight, we still will have clear skies in the south. For the rest of the UK, there'll be quite a lot of cloud around, and not a particularly cold night for most. In towns and cities, certainly staying in double figures, a little bit lower than that in rural areas. Then tomorrow we start off with a fair bit of cloud, where we've got it left over from the overnight period, but tomorrow is going to be sunnier than it's going to be today, more widely. So although we'll start with sunshine in the south, quite quickly the rest of England, Wales and Northern Ireland will follow. Scotland, you'll start off fairly cloudy, but the cloud will break through the day and we'll end up with a pretty sunny afternoon. And as you'd expect, temperatures rising nicely in that sunshine, again into the high teens or the low 20s. But the settled weather won't last for most into the weekend, Billy and Lou.
Oh, that's a shame, Carol, but it does look lovely today. Thank you very much. We'll see you later.
It's the 9th of September, so of course we're talking about Christmas.
Of course.
You probably haven't thought about buying your Christmas presents yet, but the shops certainly have in mind what they want us to choose.
Somebody has messaged me today saying they have actually bought all their Christmas presents. Yes, they have. Steph is at the Autumn Trade Fair at the NEC in Birmingham, where retail buyers are getting their shopping list ready to put in the right things that we want to buy. I guess. Morning, what have you found?
Good morning to you. Morning, everybody. I've had loads of messages from people saying they've bought their Christmas shopping as well. It's unbelievable. But if you haven't, well, it is lots of products around me that might end up in the shops.